Why did you want to do this podcast?
As a different medium of sharing my thoughts, and I thought it'd be good to do it with you. I think we talk a lot about life and deep stuff. So yeah, generally you don't see people talking about that, or sometimes you don't have a person to talk about those kind of like deep stuff. So why not just have a conversation and see where that leads us, and if people are interested to listen to it, right? So
Okay.
I think that's the whole basis of this podcast, and I guess it's a way of like sharing our knowledge as well. I think you have large amounts of knowledge or huge
wisdom.
Yeah, and experience or in sales and running sales teams. So, and this podcast could be a place for us to kind of like share what's happened or things that we've noticed over the week, things that we've learned in our domains, and things that we've read. So it's a place to just share.
All right, I'm in. When did you first have this idea?
I can't recall. Probably 2 weeks ago.
Was it actually when we were on the ride with Damien? Because I remember when you spoke to me about it, we were riding up past that development that's now falling apart.
Yeah.
And I think you shouted at me. You shouted podcast or something.
Right. Yeah.
And then you said, "Hey, do you want to do this podcast?" And I said, "Yes."
Yep.
And then I said, "What is it?"
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was that very week that I thought, why not just do a podcast? And yeah.
But 2020's been and gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has done a podcast already, and most of them have fizzled out. Why is this important to you?
I think so. It came from basically being authentic. I think a lot of the times when I write, so I started writing, I guess beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
And I realized
you started at the beginning of the year, so 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Writing or writing?
Writing.
Writing.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, typing, I guess.
Okay.
In modern era.
Oh, is this your Substack?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I realized while writing, I'm actually correcting myself a lot. And over time, I feel like, okay, I'm actually not being authentic anymore in my writing. And I'm struggling to basically not overcorrect my writing, right?
Is it because you feel that someone else is going to read it and you're thinking, what happens if someone else does read it? How are they going to view me? How are their views of me going to change? I
think it's not about how other people sees it, but it's more of like, I have like really high standards. Like, if I put this out, is the person reading this going to get value, right? Is it clear enough? So through that process, I kind of like have to chip away parts of myself just to, I guess, just to fit what value means to other people, right? It's not more of like what they perceive me, but more of like, hey, am I getting value from this thing?
Does it need? I mean, is that the realization you came to? Does it always need to be a value to somebody? Because what you perceive as value, right, might not be a value to someone else.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm just trying to catch myself. Like, okay, you know what? If someone sees value in it and they get it, then yeah, they get it, right? I don't really have to kind of like correct myself a lot. And I think with a podcast, you can't really correct yourself on the fly, right? Whatever you say if it comes from the heart, comes from the mind, it flows. So
how much editing do you think is going to go into this then?
Not much. I don't want to spend too much time like editing. I think just put it out there, right? Like not overthinking, not overdoing it. At least in the first few recordings, we just record and see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there one thing that you like? Okay, I want to talk about this today. This morning, this beautiful 8:34 a.m. Thursday, the 16th of February.
GMT plus 8.
Is it still plus 8? It is still plus 8.
Yeah. Unless the roles have shifted, but yeah.
Yeah.
Your ultramarathon tomorrow. Why? No, over the weekend.
Yes, I will be driving up to Thailand tomorrow.
Driving.
So where it is in a place called Betong, so it's kind of like surrounded by Malaysia, and I think Kuala Perlis in Terengganu They kind of go around it, I think. So yeah, it's a 4.5 hour drive. So it's not too bad. It's actually quicker to drive to Betong than it is to drive to Langkawi. And thinking about going to Langkawi after Thailand, depending on if my legs fall apart or not.
And how's the prep?
Prep's been good. Last couple of days and runs has not been the best. So I've always had a back issue, and I think just because of the training load, my hip and glute has now decided to give me some issues. And because it's giving me issues, and then overcompensating onto my left leg, which has then given me knee issues and foot issues. But got a trick. So I went out last night. I was going to run 8K at a gentle pace, and ended up doing 10. Still at a gentle pace, but it felt a lot better. So I shortened my stride, which basically means there's less pressure or stress on like my IT band and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't know if it's a muscular thing or a skeletal thing or a nerve thing or the fact that I don't stretch enough. I got no idea. All I know is shorten stride, less pressure, and I can actually go for a lot longer. And my heart rate's a bit lower as well, so it's good. My physio is going to be coming round tonight.
Just a tune-up.
As a tune-up. And his name's Dave. He's not a good man. He's a really, really nice dude, but he does not care whether or not you're crying. And there was one time where he said, look, we're going to have to loosen up your, all the muscle on, like your IT band, everything, we're going to have to do some work on that. He's like, you're going to need to lie on your side and bring your leg up and over. And then I'm going to use my forearm to basically smoothen out this thing. But there's actually some big knots there. And he was using his elbow and his forearm. And I swear to the Almighty that I was going to vomit. I was sweating so much from not doing anything. And he didn't care. He was like, 3 more. I was like, right, I'm going to be sick. He's like, you won't be sick, it's fine. So yeah, he's coming over later. So it's never great for me to have to, because I have to message him as well. Basically, hey Dave, I've got some issues. And he's like, when do I need to come over? So you're basically signing up for pain that you know you're going to get. So you have to reach out to him. So mentally it's difficult because it's not fun.
But the opposite side of that pain is usually relief.
It is. So you just got to go through that initial phase of Dave fucking you up for like an hour and a bit. But yeah, we'll see how we do. I'll thank him for it when I'm on the trail. Put it that way. Yeah, man.
How often I guess you train quite often or quite frequently.
I do.
How often do you need, a massage or physio?
It's really bad. I only get a physio around when there's a problem. So it's very reactive. I don't go for a tune-up or anything like that or get checked out. So Dave is always mad when he sees me. He's like, what the fuck is this? Yes, I'm just all broken, man. He's like, yeah, I know. I was like, I've got an hour. So, yeah, he only when there's a problem. I think the last time I saw him was maybe 6 months ago. When I had some foot issues. Might have been 6 months ago, something like that. Yeah. So.
Okay. I'd like to understand the mentality going into, like, preparing and doing an ultra. You've done one before.
I have.
So how did you go from, I guess, talking about your background, all right? You used to be, like, I guess, I don't know if it's accurate to call you a bodybuilder or weightlifter.
Absolutely. I was
Right.
aspiring weightlifter. An aspiring weightlifter because my diet does not match my training.
Yeah.
So I'll get a lot of judgment for that, but it is what it is, man.
Yeah. And how was that? Like, what type of mentality did you have, right? I would imagine in the beginning, like doing a 10K is so difficult. And how did you?
No, go back. Doing a
Yeah.
5K is so difficult.
Yeah.
So when you hit the gym, if you're a bit of a meathead, stretching is rarely high on the agenda, which it should be. So as soon as you try and get out for a run and try and do any sort of stride, it's tough. So your body needs to work extra hard because you're just not loose at all. At least that's from my experience. Which basically meant I was using extra energy just to move around because I didn't have the flexibility. So it was very tough, even to do 5K. So from there, kind of trying to work your way up to 10K or 10 miles or a half marathon or anything like that takes a long time. It does take a long time. What more do you want me to say, man? Don't look at me like that. So judgy.
I mean, no, I'm not judging. I mean, I'm just curious, like how does someone just decide, you know what, 5K is tough. I'm going to go do an ultra. Ultimately,
there's a big leap, isn't there? I don't know what happened, so I put it down to a very good friend of mine, Nick, and so I train 7 days a week. So I was always and I always used to go to the gym. I rarely wore like a sports watch or anything like that. I didn't track my workouts. I was bench pressing dumbbells all day. And then, I can't remember when it was, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, Nick and I were in the pub. And Nick had got me out into the trails here in Malaysia a couple of times. And we'd done some 5Ks in the trails. But that's, when you're in the trails, it's not running consistently. It's more, you run, hike, walk, depending on the elevation and all that. And it was fun. It was really fun. And then because you're with somebody else and Nick's more experienced, and Nick used to do a lot of adventure races, like 2-3 day races where you don't sleep, and it was all rock climbing, cycling, running and swimming. So he was always into that. And he was, I can't remember when it was, 2018, 2019, maybe 2018. And he hadn't done anything for a while, like any of these big races. And he was, I don't know how we got onto it, but we're sat in the pub just smashing pints of Guinness. And the topic came up of doing a race in the jungle. And I was like, okay, why not? And we signed up like whilst we were in the pub. And it was a 35k race just to the north of Malaysia, so it was in Taiping. And yeah, it was only 35, wasn't even an ultra. And the training for that was subpar. So we would pop out and do like 5k here, 8k here on the road. We'd be in the jungle a little bit. The training was not hard at all. So I mean, the kit that I had, I did no research turning up for this run. I mean, dude, I went to Sports Direct and I bought a Carry More backpack because I was like, oh, I need a bladder and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't even like a trail running pack. It was a backpack. It was like a 35 or 40 litre backpack that I turned up with. And yeah, we just went out and we did it. I can't remember how long this 35k took me. I'll have to go back. I think I was wearing a Fitbit at the time, so I probably got the data somewhere. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, just going out to the jungle, just kind of moving around. Because it's a trail race rather than a trail run, so you're not running the whole time. And yeah, it was from there, it was, I suppose, a steady slope into, well, I wonder if this is, how far can you go and what can you do? My problem is I've never really been consistent. Because when I'm giving up for a run, I adjust my training. So I run and I ride a lot, so it's a lot more cardio stuff. So I kind of scaled down my gym work. So I don't really keep it up. But for some reason, the last maybe 2 years, 3 years, I've been more focused on the consistency behind the training. So I know, like you and Mark, you've got a group that ride on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll ride on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning. And I'll run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then do a long run on either Saturday or Sunday. Then a long ride on the Saturday or the Sunday, and then depending on the day, if it's a run day, then I will lift weights in the evening or afternoon. And if it's a ride day, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll run in the evenings. So it's pretty much training twice a day. I try to. But that came from when I did the 75 hard. That kind of that habit. And I just found it was fun to train, because training doesn't become an additional thing you have to do. Training becomes a part of who you are, I suppose. Like, I have meetings when I go out for a run. I have meetings and meet potential new clients when I'm going out for a ride. If I'm going to the gym, I'll go with some friends of mine and we'll talk about work or business. So it becomes part of what you do, rather than sitting down in a pub or in a cafe doing a meeting. You're making it part of just your normal day-to-day.
Yep.
I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of changing your environment and your communities and changing your standards. It just becomes a bit different. And I blame people like you for that. Because you reset the standard of, what's actually, I suppose, what is possible. Because, I mean, we went out this morning, we rode 20K. Like, for some people, that's a medium ride, a medium length ride. You will go out and you can ride and have rode like 250, 300. What's the longest ride you've done?
280.
280.
Yeah.
You've rode 280 kilometers in one shot. That's not a normal thing to do. But because you talk about it so much and that's what you do, that just becomes another standard. So going out and you and I riding 20K or 50K, or we'll pop out and ride 100K, or we'll run 21K, or we'll go and do an ultramarathon, just becomes, it's normal conversation. So you kind of reset your standards about what's possible and what you can actually do. Whereas hanging around in different groups or a different environment, drinking 10, 15, 20 pints is a normal thing to talk about. Going out and getting smashed 5 nights a week is a normal thing to talk about. I like both, but it's just the circles of friends and people that you associate with. It's just what's the narrative, what's the conversation you have. That's why, for me, it's important to surround yourself with that different crowd, because it just becomes part of what you do. And then with people like you say, okay, if this guy can ride 280, I can ride 140. So when we did the Cameron ride, the furthest I'd ever ridden was 113 kilometers. And then on day one, we did 143 or 146 with a few thousand meters of elevation. So that's the furthest I've ever ridden by, 30% on top. And it was Damien who said, well, why don't we just ride back to KL? So we went from Cameron Highlands back to KL, and that was a 216 kilometer ride, which is almost double what I'd done before. And, I'm not a strong rider, but I'm behind these guys that are taking a lead, and they're pulling at 57. My cruising speed is like 26. So I'm hanging on for dear life. But then it's just like, I rode 216 kilometers. If somebody said, hey, can you ride 216 kilometers, having only rode 113, I'd be like, no, I can't. Because that's what you think. But until you're in the saddle, you don't know if you can actually do it. So coming back to the training and changing of what you do, a lot of the training that you do, at least how I view it, is not fitness training. It's a byproduct of what you have to do. You go out and you run and you ride and you get fitter and fitter, but you go out and you run and you ride when you're fucked, when you're completely tired, when it's dark, when it's early in the morning, when it's late at night, when the conditions aren't great, when it's too hot out, you do heat training when it's too wet out. So that's what that training is all about. You're preparing yourself for those conditions when you don't want to run, because you're going to be 6-7 hours deep into a race and you're like, my feet hurt, my legs hurt, my back hurts, everything's heavy, I don't want to be here. And that's when fitness doesn't matter. So for me, a lot of the training is training to deal with that mental state that you're inevitably going to be in. And bear in mind, I'm only running 55. I'm not running 100 kilometers or 100 miles yet, because I don't know if my body will take it. But then as I'm saying that, I'm like, yeah, I'm just being a dick. Why not sign up for it? Because it's just moving your feet. Can I take one more step? I think I've been listening maybe too much to David Goggins recently, his new book. And the thing that he says is, can I take one more step? And if you can take one more step, then you can take another step. So as long as you just keep moving forward, then the way I think about it is tomorrow is going to happen. Win or lose.
Yep.
Shit or bust. Tomorrow's going to happen. Live or die. World's going to turn. Sun's going to rise. Sun's going to set. Tomorrow's going to happen. So that's the only thing I think about. Because if you're 30k in or 35k into a 55 race, all you're thinking is how long you've got left. But if you can think about that next step and the fact that it is going to end, then it's like, well, just keep moving forward then. Why not? And it's fun. Because it's like, you're out in the jungle, it's beautiful scenery, and you're like, well, fuck it, what's going to happen? What's possible? Can my body keep going? Am I going to fall apart? I don't know. Let's find out. And then when you put yourself in those situations where you're a bit more uncomfortable, a bit more uncertain, and you can get through to the other side, then it's like, okay, well, this is what's actually possible. So coming back to, messaging Dave and being like, can you come over and fuck me up and put me through pain? Same thing. You opt to do these things. You're voluntarily putting yourself in these situations. That's just like life. If you cannot voluntarily put yourself in these uncomfortable or difficult situations, then how are you going to move yourself forward? And that is the struggle. But I suppose that's why, for me, I really enjoy coaching and mentoring and guiding and stuff like that, because some people haven't had the luck or privilege that I have, whatever it is to get to where I am, that they will stop themselves progressing as far as they can. That's why when you and I worked together, I was like, how can I be a bit of a dick to this guy and just keep pushing him? How can I put him in uncomfortable situations? Because I can see what's possible for you because of how you operate. I've been thinking about trajectory a lot recently as well, but you can't see it. For whatever reason, whether that's the limitations, imposter syndrome, the fact that you're too in your own head or you're just living your own life, that I get the privilege to see what is possible for you. So I'm like, well, how can I push this guy forward more? And then how do we get that hockey stick growth? Whilst, and here's a challenge, providing not a safety net, but a support to be like, okay, now I'm really stretched or I'm feeling burnt out or I need a break. And then providing that coaching to be like, okay, let's reassess what's going on. You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it picks up a few themes there, right? Like how when starting something difficult, or you like one person can change your life, like a good friend like Nick, for example, and maybe a few pints of Guinness, could actually
social lubrication.
Yeah, could change your life, right?
Yeah.
And we don't realize the change that we can make just being by us, like one person, like lifting someone else up, right? And that's where mentorship comes in, like coaching comes in as well. Like if you really want to do something difficult, find someone who can actually coach you and mentor you and be there to like live your standards, as you mentioned, which I totally agree. I think that's everyone needs like a friend, maybe not a coach, not a mentor, but someone who can actually lift you up, right? Like mixed with people who actually are above you, not in, I guess ahead of you. And they are there to kind of like push you, right? So I would my first 250 ride was actually from home to Fraser's, and Damien was the one that suggested it.
Was it that guy? That guy. We should get him in here. We need another mic. We'll get him in here and just start giving him shit and blaming him for what happened.
But yeah, like I wouldn't.
How far was it before 250? How far had you ridden?
180, 200, but not 250 with like 2,000 something elevation. So yeah, and I wouldn't have done it alone. That's just to put it that way.
Yeah.
But knowing that, hey, Damon's gonna do it as well, and I think that was also his like longest ride. So yeah, we're just there to push each other, and also like, okay, if one falls, actually you're not alone, right?
Yeah.
There's someone else there to be there with you and push through together. I think people really do need that, especially when you're actually trying to push your boundaries a little bit. Yeah, it's helpful. It's not necessary, I would say, but it's helpful to have.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be times when you're going to be on your own, and you need to push yourself. There's going to be no one there to support you. But having friends like Damien and yourself, David, George, Mark, when you start like moving in these kind of circles, they show you that what's actually possible. So in that group setting, it's like, okay, I can actually do this. I can stretch myself by 30, 40, 50% from a physical standpoint. So that when you do, because I've seen you do your solo rides, it's like, okay, I can do this. So even if you start to break down, or if I'm on a trail and I start to break down, you can reflect back on these times where it's like, no, I'm capable of doing these things. So I've been in these situations before when shit's falling apart. I had people around me then, but now I don't. But you've basically conditioned yourself to be able to push yourself forward. So I think it's important to have like this network of people that can push you, but then it also helps tune your mind to be more resilient and to break past those limits. That's what I think about as well. It's like, okay, now I'm at this stage, and that's why this training in unfavorable conditions is like, it's fine. The first 55 I did when I was like 15, 20k in, and my nails came off because my feet swelled up because I wore the wrong socks and didn't have the best shoes. It's like, what am I going to do? Do you bow out, or do you just kind of continue? Again, I was in a situation where I'd listen to David Goggins' first book, and that's all I was kind of thinking about when I was kind of trying to finish this thing. I finished it. It took me like 15 hours or whatever, and there was points where I was going downhill, but I had to go down the hills backwards because I couldn't. The pain was too much on my toes because I didn't want to take my shoes off because one, I thought if I take them off, I'm not going to want to put them back on, and two, I didn't know if I could put them back on because my feet were swollen. So I was walking backwards down hills and all this kind of stuff. I didn't have any poles or anything. But again, you put yourself through these conditions where it's like, well, tomorrow's going to come, win or lose, so let's see how far I can actually go. That's the fun bit. I do think so.
Yeah, something that just a recent thought, as recent as this morning. It's about. I'm just thinking like young people, like what's the general feeling, right, that young people go through. I feel like maybe it's me projecting, I don't know, but it's insecurity. Like we're always comparing against like what other people have, and we feel insecure.
Would you say young people? I would argue it's everybody, me included. Yeah. Well,
I guess most people.
Are you trying to tell me that you are not insecure about certain things?
Not really. I think everyone goes through, like they have to, I guess, not really fight, but be aware of their own insecurities and how that affects how they think and how they live their life. Because I'm thinking like, if you're insecure with your current state, and we talk about mixing with a new environment, lifting the standards.
Yeah.
When we actually meet with people ahead of us, we might feel insecure and we might reject that resistance or that push and feel like, I don't belong here.
Right.
And then they fall back and choosing something that's comfortable. I think that's the danger with insecurity. Like you feel insecure when you feel like you don't deserve or you don't belong. There's something greater, right? Yeah.
I can't remember where I heard this recently. There's a couple of things I'd like to talk about on that point. It's this idea where we put people on a pedestal. Thank you. Jeez. Swear I'm not drunk. And we think that they're so far away from where I am. I could never do that. I could never be in that position. I could never ride 280 with however many thousand meters of elevation. It's impossible for me. But they're human beings. The greatest people in the world are literally just that. They are human beings that have, behind the scenes, they've either got incredible talent and they've worked incredibly hard. They're just incredibly talented, whatever it is, but they're still human beings. And you can get to the stage of maybe not matching their capabilities, but getting to a point of close arm's length by just being disciplined and working hard. I think this idea of this insecurity, I used to call it like the sweaty palm moment, sweaty palm situation. Did I tell you this?
No.
What was that? Did I take a picture?
Let me check.
When I was working at Super Hands, I got into a routine or rhythm of work, and I realized that I was still within my comfort zone in the sense that I didn't feel I wasn't being stretched, but I wasn't voluntarily stretching myself. So I spoke to Marissa, and I said, "Hey Mars," and she's like, "What's up, man?" I was like, "I haven't really had any sweaty palm moments recently. The points where adrenaline and you're nervous about doing something because it's new." And I was like, "What do you reckon we can do to maybe do a bit of brand awareness, a bit of PR for the company or anything like that?" She's like, "Leave it with me." And she set up a bunch of events. So I did a panel discussion virtually, one in Hong Kong, with some of the guys from VSense about some e-commerce and data labeling stuff. I was on Money FM live, which was hilarious. And there was a few of the articles that were written with people coming in, because it's like these sweaty palm moments where, despite the insecurity, the trigger there is I'm getting too complacent, and therefore I need to stretch myself and I need to grow. So I don't have advice for anybody that would feel that and then would go back into their comfort zone, because I suppose the thing for me with that one is, if I became complacent in the sense that I wasn't going to stretch and grow because of the role I was in at Superhouse CRO, I had people that were reporting to me, which was like yourself and Julian and Steve, Lewin, Kiss, and then also working alongside the founders as well. If I'm not pushing and growing, then by virtue of that, you're stagnating. So other people were relying on me to grow and stretch myself for a couple of reasons. The business demands it because the company and the industry moves so fast. And people are looking up to you as well. So whether we like it or not, if we're in a higher up position, people will look to us at the standard that we're setting. Shit rolls downhill, starts at the top, whatever you want to call it. But if people are looking to you for guidance about how you operate, and they see that you're becoming complacent, you're not learning, you're not growing, you're not stretching yourself, then that shit spreads like wildfire. Then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to relax. Or I'm not going to do this. And whether we like it or not, Elon Musk has set a standard. If you want to work hard and you want to be the best engineers in the world, stay at Twitter. If you want to sit back and just relax, then leave. Doors open. Good or bad, right or wrong, I'm not going to comment on that. But he's basically set a standard. And that's what this thing is. Like, I suppose it comes down to accountability. If you're insecure, are you just insecure? But like, why are you insecure? Are you insecure because it's an ego thing? Because you can't keep up? Because you don't feel you're smart enough? Or is there something else? What's at stake? Who are you accountable to? You're accountable to yourself, someone else? I don't know. But for me, I always found it as trigger points. If I felt insecure, I was like, okay, now this is my time to grow. And I wonder what I'm capable of. And don't fear the failure. Because if you don't try, then you're not going to know. I was invited along to a 30-kilometer run in the jungle a couple of weeks ago as a training run for this ultramarathon. And the people that I knew were going, are strong runners. Like, from a trail perspective, some of them are top 10 finishers, right? I'm not a top 50. Probably not even a top 100. Actually, definitely not a top 100. I go there and I turn up and I'm going to try and complete the race.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, I just won't go. because it's scary. Like these guys, they're going to be shifting, like they're moving, and I didn't think I was going to be capable to keep up. So even when you're going through this and people see some of the stuff I've done or online or whatever it is, they're like, oh my God, he can just do whatever and he's fine. He's like, oh, he's so confident. Fuck that. You still go through these things, but it's these moments, and it's the power of choice. I want to talk about that, is, well, just do it. Literally, what's the worst that's going to happen? You can't keep up and you tell them, hey, I'm going to have to slow down a bit, and I've got the course on my watch and I'll just finish when I finish. Perfect. What's the real thing that's stopping me here? Is it an ego thing because I can't keep up? Or is it I'm scared of not finishing? I'm scared of hurting myself? What is it? Couldn't answer that. So I put on my pack and went out. Had a great time. It's just ridiculous. And that's the power of choice. So years ago, when I was reading through the bunch of stuff from Tony Robbins, I actually really like his stuff. It is the power of choice and making a decision. And then we come down to trajectory. What trajectory are you going to set yourself on? These micro decisions that you make for yourself. So it kind of intertwined with the James Clear Atomic Habits stuff. And these small choices that you make for yourself on a daily basis, these marginal gains, these atomic habits that you start to form, and they compound over time. Can you imagine if I decided not to go? It's not just about not turning up and doing the run. It's not just about not being there for the run. You haven't made it. It's the choice that you've made not to turn up. It's the choice that you've made for yourself that you're, actually, I'm not going to be good enough for this. And you start to chip away at both your capabilities, your limits, and basically your mental resilience. And it's if you do this enough times, it compounds over time to the point where I'm just not good enough. On the flip side, if you start making these choices for yourself, whether you win or lose or fail or you succeed, you start to learn more about yourself, and you can start to put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, remove your ego and just turn up. And then when you start to do this, it starts to change how you behave. It starts to change how you train. It's like, well, am I going to go out and attack the hills? You're damn right I am, because I've got a big ride coming up to Cameron Highlands, and if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be able to compete. I'm not going to be able to turn up. I'm not going to be able to hang around with my friends, because the friends that I hang around with now ride 146 whatever kilometers and go up to Cameron. So once you start to make these decisions for yourself, you start to change how you behave, change your environment, change your settings, change what time you get up, change what time you go to bed. Everything starts to change, whether you like it or not, because you've made these decisions for yourself. So when I did this long run, I had to be up at 4 o'clock, because I then committed to pick up another guy called Sean at 5, so we could get to the trail for 6, and then start the run at like 6:15 or whatever. If I decided not to go, I wouldn't have got up at 4 o'clock, and I wouldn't have gone to bed early the night before, and I probably would have got up at like 7, 8, 9 o'clock the next day, because, why not have a sleep in? And then I would have dossed about, milled around a bit, maybe gone out for brunch or whatever, like 11, 12 o'clock. Whereas what happened was I got up at 4, got on a trail, was on a trail for 30k, we were out there for 7 hours or something. I got to know a lot more people in like a different situation, these fast runners who are really nice guys and very patient with people that are aspiring runners. And then you start to kind of get connected with these guys. And then you start to see what they like to do and start to go on trails and runs and hikes that they do. So my training goes from down here to up a little bit, because I'm pushing myself. I think I'm pushing myself compared to my standard. Then all of a sudden, I'm pushing myself a little bit more. The power of choice. It's like these small decisions that you make for yourself. Do I get up early in the morning? Do I not? Do I eat this burger? God, I love burgers. Or do I not? Do I go out at night and have 10 pints, or do I not? But even the smallest decision as well, writing a LinkedIn post. For me, that habit has now fallen off a cliff. I was thinking about this the other day and wondering why. Still trying to work that out.
Yeah. I mean, we always like to think like the difficult choices or difficult decisions are usually the big ones. Like, should I buy this car or move here or here? But really, like you talk about micro decisions.
Yeah.
Waking up at 4 a.m. That is a difficult decision to make.
It is.
Probably like 90% of people don't wake up at 4 a.m. just to go, voluntarily run for like 30K. Right?
Yeah.
So that is a difficult decision. It doesn't have to be something huge. It's micro decisions, like you said, right? Difficult decisions make easy life.
They do. How about yourself, man? Have you got any long rides or anything coming up?
No, so let me rephrase. Not races, but more of like personal challenges.
Nice.
So I tried to complete an Everesting last year, and fell short of like.
What is Everesting?
Everesting is basically doing the same hill until you hit Everest elevation, which is 8,848.
So you have to go up and down the same hill until you completed 8,848. 8,848 meters.
Yep.
How long?
I was planning to finish it in 17 hours, including
17
like,
hours
rest.
in the saddle.
Yeah. But yeah, long story short, I gave up. I think towards the end, I had like 15 laps to go, which would take me around 3 hours, and I would have ended at like 11 p.m. or something like that.
What time did you start?
5 a.m.
So what time did you wake up to go to this place?
3:30ish. Yeah, just to wake up, prep everything, drive an hour to that hill. Yeah, so...
For those that might... I don't know who's going to watch this, but for those that would want to see this hill on Google Maps, what's the name of the hill?
It's called Bukit Hantu.
How do you spell that?
Hantu.
Okay, Bukit Hantu in Malaysia.
Yeah, in Malaysia.
Just in case. Just in case.
Yeah, so it's I can't even remember what's the distance, but essentially I have to do 56 laps of that hill, and I was 15 short. So
that is insane. So what was the total elevation you completed?
6,400 something. So I'm like around 2,000 plus short.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was a good experience though. Like, which is why I asked, how do you, what type of mentality did you need to have, right? Changing from 5K to running an ultra, because essentially doing an Everesting is like doing an ultra, because you spend 10 plus hours, just in that same activity. Yeah,
but for Everesting, it's on the same hill. I mean, there's no change of scenery.
Yeah.
So how did you train for that?
I did not.
So why do you think you couldn't complete those last 15? I mean, come on. Like, well, what was your cycling kind of on the lead up to that then? So you did no training with intent, basically? Is that what you're saying?
It was a very short. I mean, I knew it was coming, but I didn't put in like enough time to train for it, right? I mean, I'm doing like 150 Ks, 180 Ks, but that wasn't sufficient, I would say. So David's like, you need to put in 250 Ks, like 180 just won't cut it for the Everesting. So David has done like probably 4 or 5 Everestings already. So he's experienced, and I should just, take his advice and train for it. But yeah, I think ultimately what came down to it, like me not completing, is just not giving myself permission to just do it. I think I feel, I judge myself like, oh, if I can't complete it in like 17 hours, that's already a failure, so why continue, right?
Right.
So yeah, ultimately it's just not giving myself permission to,
I know what you mean.
It's that.
So I've been thinking about this as well, after obviously going through the David Goggins book, because he was doing, I think it was the Moab 240, which is a 240-mile race, and he basically set, okay, these are the goals that I want to complete on this, and he got to a point where he wasn't going to reach those goals, and same mentality, it's all fucked. because he didn't reach the goal that he wanted to. And I've been thinking about this, so I've set myself a time that I'd like to complete this ultra in, which is 10 hours, which I then started to think about, well, what happens if I get to 10 hours and I'm 40k in? So I'm with you on that one. How do you basically give yourself permission, I suppose? And I've been thinking, for that one, my mentality going into this, I've started to visualize, so the kickoff, the start line is in the tunnel. And I imagine myself in the tunnel with my yellow Solomon bag on, ready to run the race, with got my Atlas Collective cap on, and I'm just about to start this. And I imagine when they gun off, flag off, whatever, there's a buzzer that goes, that'll happen, and then I'll take a couple of paces and I'll be walking. And the only thing that I'm thinking is I'm running my race. If I do it in 10, perfect. If I don't do it in 10, that's okay. But we'll see. There was a study done. I don't know what this study is, by the way, so you can't quote me on this. And it was an athletic study. And I can't remember if it was sprinting or endurance or whatever it is. And the coach basically said to his athletes, when you go out right now, go out and give me 85%. It was like either 85 or 80%. And what happened was the athletes went out and they performed much, much better, much, whatever the data is, I don't know, than the coach saying go out and give me 100%. Because when you say go out and give me 100%, 105%, 110%, whatever it is, you set this expectation for yourself that I've got to be great, I've got to be amazing, and you try and stretch yourself, and naturally you tense up, you become a bit more rigid. So when you say, hey, go out and give me 80, 85%, you're a lot more relaxed, a lot more calm, a bit looser, and you can actually perform better. So I've been thinking about that. I don't know how true this is or what the study is, but I'd like to read into it a bit more. I just haven't. But it's an interesting concept that by saying, hey, go out and give me below 100%, you can actually perform way better because you're calmer in your mind, and it just helps the body kind of relax into it. I think it's the same in work as well, and business. So maybe we can talk about that another time for the company just started. But yeah, it's an interesting thought to not be stressed all the time about where the next client is coming from. And it comes a lot from the idea of being prepared. Ross Edgley calls it GPP, General Physical Preparedness, I think it is. Have you read any of his stuff, Ross Edgley? So Ross Edgley, there's a few guys. There's a guy called Ross Edgley and another guy called Nick Bear. They are essentially hybrid athletes. Nick Bear you're familiar with, right?
Yep.
Big dude. He's done the Leadville 100-mile race, bunch of different ultras, ran a sub 4 or sub 3:30 marathon as well, and he's like he's a big dude. He's not a runner, but his idea of being prepared, like general physical preparedness. If I told you put your shoes on and go out and run 21k, you can, because you're physically fit. But whether or not you're mentally ready to run 21k right now is a different thing.
True. Yeah.
Right? Because sun's coming up, it's 9:19 in the morning, it's going to be a bit warm. I've got sun cream behind me, I've got hats in there, I've got all the kit. You can run. There's nothing to stop you other than the fact that you think you can't. Whereas you can. And this idea of being prepared is something that allows you to be a lot more relaxed and a lot more confident. And a lot of people don't see this. A lot of people don't see what happens behind the scenes. Especially in my world of sales, they think, oh my God, this guy just turns up and he's a born salesperson. It's like, fuck. If only people really knew what happened behind closed doors. And the amount of effort that goes in to make stuff look effortless it's astronomical. and the sacrifices and the discipline, which I lack a lot of the time because I'm inherently lazy. It's this requirement for you to turn up and be good and be great. There's an ex-girlfriend, and we would get in some arguments sometimes about work and the ability to, progress, and people reaching out saying, hey, can you come and work for us? And she always used to say to me, it's so easy for you. It's so easy for you to go out and do these things. It's so easy for you to go out and get jobs. It's so easy for you to close deals. It's so easy for you to make sales. It's just so easy for you. And that was like, not that it was a trigger, shall we say, but it's one of those things. It's like, you see what I do. You see, like, the work, the study, the reading, the learning, the self role plays, the courses, the 6 a.m. to whatever time at night doing cold calls, getting rejected, going through all that imposter syndrome, and then people have the audacity to say, hey, it's just so easy for you. I was like, yeah, I make it look easy, but I'm insecure about all these things. I've got imposter syndrome. I'm scared about failing. I've got a big ego on me. And yet you still say it's easy for me. It's like, it's just not the case. It might look like it on the surface because I'm trying to have this cool, calm exterior, whatever it is, because of, trying to learn as much as you can so you can turn up and be prepared. And it's underappreciated, I think. That's why when you see somebody being awesome, when you see your friends excelling at something, like when we went to see Damien's warehouse and all that kind of stuff, we saw the end result. Right, we saw the end result. But when you know what's required to get to that end result, the admiration for the people that have to go through this is so much higher because you've been through it yourself. It's like, holy shit, man. Like, this is, he's built this massive warehouse. Like, if you could see it, it's so impressive. And it's not just what has been completed, but how it's been completed. Like, the level of detail, like the grain in the marble and like the wood and the finish and everything. You're looking for blemishes in this however many thousands of square meters warehouse, and it's like the thought and detail that's gone into it and the preparedness and the effort. It's just like, that's the admiration. And that's why when you see people and see your friends succeeding, some people like shit on them, like jealous of like how far they've gotten. It's like, why? Like, the level of effort to get there. Okay, they might have had some luck along the way because that counts for a lot. But Jesus, like, these guys, they put in the work. You put in the work. I've seen you put in the work. That's why I loved working with you. That's why I wanted to do this with you, because the work that goes into it. It's not work. It's not writing, sending emails, and like long hours. It's the mental effort that goes into it. The fact that you put yourself out there, you're okay to be vulnerable, and you're okay to maybe fail at certain things, but the fact that you would do it, learning and doing, two different things. When you actually do it, it's admirable, man. And I'm like, how can I back this? How can you get behind your friends? How can you be that cheerleader, but then also be that guy that can just fucking kick their ass if you see them dropping off a bit? People underappreciate the amount of preparedness it goes into being, as they would deem, a success. Success is a topic for another time, I think.
Yeah, it's a big one. But yeah, ultimately, it's like coming back to insecurity as well. Like, you see people being so successful. Ultimately, everyone has their own story, right? We don't know. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes, like you said. Like, we shouldn't be jealous or envious. Like, oh, I wish I had their life. Someone wished they had your life.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's easily forgotten, right?
Yeah, you don't really have to feel insecure. Like, oh, I wish I'm as lucky, or I had that opportunity. But still, someone had to work for that, right? Opportunity needs hard work equals to success.
Yeah,
like, you can't have just one. So, yeah, it's.
Which people either do you aspire to have some of their attributes, not aspire to be, but you know, which people do you look up to, whether it's athletics or business or anything like that, where it's like, wow, they've got that's inspiration. Like they have just got this attitude that says, or they operate in a certain way. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
I have a list on my Substack, on my About page, of people who inspire me, or sources of inspiration. On top of mind, Gary Vee. I think he speaks really authentically, and he is also an expert at what he does. And he really does put in the time to learn about culture, to learn about what's going on in the world. He's so in tune with it, and how he leads his team with empathy. He wrote this book like 12 and a half, right? Like all the values that he embodies. So he's definitely up top right there. I have a few other, what's his name? I can't remember his name now. Derek Sivers.
Who's Derek Sivers?
He wrote like a few books. CD Baby. He started CD Baby. I don't know if that rings a bell.
It does not ring a bell.
Yeah, he wrote a few books, like how to get everything you want in life or something like that. And his philosophy of living life and running a business, I do it inspire, like, oh, okay, it resonates with me. And
which so you have 7 articles here. So for those that are, where's your inspiration list?
In the About page.
The About page.
You see my, yeah.
Where is it?
Go to the main Substack, and there should be an About page.
I do. I only see. Where did it move this? Let me see if we can do this. Wow. Which one?
Oh, you're at my. So if you go here. No thanks.
It's because I'm not signed in. I'm actually subscribed already. Okay, what do we got?
There's a long list. I can't remember all of them, but it's one way or another, they inspire me. I mentioned a few there. Let's see.
Oh, look at this, source of inspiration.
Yep.
So the top of the list is Steve Schlafman.
Yeah, so he's the one who inspired me to start coaching.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I first learned about him through his annual reflection or annual review, kind of like a template. And then I started reading more about him and his philosophy about life. So he writes as well, and his philosophy for coaching. I'm like, yep, I resonate with his message and what he wants to put out in the world. I'm like, okay, I'm looking up to this guy. So my About page is actually inspired by his About page. So it's pretty similar in terms of format. So yeah, I take a lot of you know how to say good artists steal. So I basically just stolen his format. But I think it's a way of spreading the same message essentially. So I don't see it as a bad way of stealing. In this case, isn't really bad. I'm still putting myself out there, but more of the format and how to do certain things.
Yeah.
I'm just wanting his what do you call that? His example. Yeah. Gary Vee also says don't do what I say, do what I do, right? So
yeah.
Similar.
So you are moving more into coaching. Is that right?
Yes. Well, how to define coaching? It's up to people, but essentially, what I like to put out in the world is helping, I guess, the younger generation, because I've been through that, the 20s and now into my 30s. I've been through that life period, and I know what the struggles are in terms of your career, in terms of your own personal development, moving up, to become a manager. What does that transition like? And it's a lot of self-mastery essentially, and self-awareness, self-development, and that's where I think, yes, you can do it on your own, but having a coach or a mentor, when we work together, you were that person for me. You mentioned earlier on, pushing me, helping to. You have the privilege to see from outside, and know what this person is capable of, right? So I want to be that for, I guess, other people as well.
How are you going about it?
So one is writing, right? Just writing based on my experience and stuff that I'm thinking about, and putting it out there. And if someone needs coaching, then okay, yeah, let's set up, a recurring coaching session with whatever they need help with, right? Particular around their career or maybe even in their life. So it's not focused on like business coaching and stuff like that, but it's just, I guess, general life coaching.
You're gonna be a life coach? Are you gonna like?
And it sounds very
the fact that you are a vegan and now a life coach. How?
I just need to take up yoga.
I was gonna say one, like when are you taking up yoga, and the second one, when are you moving to Bali? Are you gonna wear like hemp baggy pants?
No, that's not me.
Yet.
It's not Arrow. Lycra all day.
So for the coaching stuff, we're gonna have to wrap up in a minute.
Yeah.
Obviously for work and everything. But for coaching, where can people find out about your coaching stuff?
So I'm not actively kind of like asking people, like recruiting. Well, not really recruiting, but like I'm not opening up like coaching slots or whatnot. But
why not?
If
you got a lot to give. A lot to give back.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess if based on what they read on my Substack, and they feel like, hey, I'd like to learn a bit more and develop myself more, they can reach out. That's like a contact. I mean, they can contact me on LinkedIn, or we can put it in the show notes. Oh, yeah.
Does that just turn off?
Yeah, it turns off every half an hour for some reason. You wouldn't record more than 30 minutes at a time.
That's okay. We can stitch it all together. Okay, well, if you want to read then about your stuff, where can you read about it?
It's myname.substack.com. My name meaning...
M-Y-N-A...
No. MINXIANGLEE.substack.com.
Thank you very much. I like how that kind of wrapped up with a small kind of coaching thing, But it's definitely worth finding out. I think for those that can't hear the massive URL, go onto LinkedIn, search for linkedin.com/IN/MX Lee.
LEE.
LEE, not LI. Thank you. Be helpful. I've enjoyed this chat, man.
Yeah, I think we had a lot to cover, but
I don't think we covered any of it.
Yeah, I know.
There was like four or five things that I wanted to talk to you about, like your current search for love. But we'll have to leave that till the next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for setting this up. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, man. See you next week.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Girl Scout.